I apologize in advance. I am terribly out of practice, but perhaps you will get more information from my mistakes than you would get if I just came up here and went whisk, 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 and came up with a masterpiece. And you'll go away wondering, what did she do? What did she do? But today you'll know what I did, because I'll say, oops, and then you will know. Okay, without any further...
What do you do when you're not painting?
Well, I paint, but I'm playing with other media now. I've painted in pastel in watercolor now since 1946. And a combination of events. One was just ordinary artistic burnout. Another was the loss of my eye, which has made it extremely difficult to paint the same style that I used to paint, which was highly detailed, and I don't see that well anymore. So a combination of things gave me an excuse to quit, actually. It was a great relief.
How did you lose your
I had cancer. No.
You want to share why you have that incredible eye patch on and how many more are at home?
Well, this is a rather tame one, actually. Well, I just decided that as long as I have to go around with a billboard on my face, I might as well make it artistic. So I asked all my artist friends to come up with these things, distributed patterns to everybody, and I have about 40 eye patches. Well, I mean, you might as well. I got to wear it all the time anyways. Some of them are so wild. Oh, I have to tell you a story. You're all familiar with Peggy Mooring. You know Peggy Mooring. Well, Peggy lives down in Arizona now, and she heard about this, and she said, oh, poor Liz, I've got to make her an eye patch. So she did. She made this elaborate thing, as only Peggy can do, with a three-dimensional lizard that came swooping across it with a tail that went up my cheek. Like that. The only problem was she made it for the wrong eye. So when I got it and tried to wear it, the tail goes right up my nose. So anyway, and I'm selling advertising space if anybody needs it.
My husband's grandmother lived to be 90 years old, and she, I think, must have been for 40 years. She lost her eye with cancer too. She had this one eye, but believe me, that eye, it caught everything. Here's watch out for it.
Well, I'm doing something that I haven't done before, and I never do florals. So today I thought, well, okay, I'll do a floral. So this little still life that I brought, unfortunately it's the remains of my rose garden, which that was all there was. So I'm going to try to paint flowers today, and I really don't know how to do this. Bear with me. I use 140-pound Arches rough paper, and I stretch it on canvas stretchers like this, just like you'd stretch a canvas, and it comes out very, very tight. And the reason for that is I like to paint extremely wet, and the paper buckles so when it's very wet. It kind of goes this way, and things run down into the valleys and gets out of hand. So this way I can really soak this, and it does not lose its tightness. And it's lightweight. I can turn it around and flip it over and use the back side, and, things like that.
And do you use the stretchers again?
Oh yes, oh yes. Yeah, you can use the stretchers. Not only that, but you can, I have in my studio, I have a box full of various size stretchers, all the way from about 5 feet tall down to 12 inches. And I can make long, skinny pictures, or, any size that I want to. And I'm fortunate that my husband does my framing for me, so I don't have to paint to custom frame sizes. I mean, to regular frame sizes. Okay. Do you mind if I don't use that? Okay, good. Now, first thing, I'm going to just describe what I'm doing here as I go along. And it may seem to you that I'm taking a lot of time with these preambles, but any of you that have ever studied with me know that I count this as being probably the most important part of the painting. What I'm doing now, actually what I've done already, and just choosing the objects that I'm going to paint here, I don't need that in there. I have already kind of composed the painting to some extent. I've chosen the colors, and you can't go wrong with primaries. I don't know why this happens, but in many of my paintings I find out after I've painted them My gosh, there they are again, those three primaries. I've got red, yellow, and blue. And so that's what I have again here today. So what I want to do is just kind of divide this space up somehow so that it looks more or less like it's going to be. And I'm not spending any time on this. This is what I call a thumbnail. And what it does is it helps me organize the objects that I'm going to paint in the space that I have. And I can change this very easily without any expenditure of time and effort. And I'm looking to try to get it in the space of the 4 lines that I already have. This area here is already part of the composition. I can't help that. And everything that I put in that space has got to relate to those 4 lines that are already there. So this is what I'm doing now, is just kind of organizing my thoughts here to see how it's going to work. And I can move the edges around. I've deliberately put this little other chunk of lemon over here to the left so that the lemons themselves will not be the only spot of yellow in the painting. You know, I've been doing a lot of computer art lately, just for fun. And I have a, what do they call it, a sketch pad with a stylus that you can draw on it. All I have to do is turn it over and I can erase things. It's really great. I can't do that with this pencil, so. And then, of course, if it really gets out of hand, I just push a button and delete it.
How do you like that computer art?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I don't see myself doing it in any way that is, really a serious application. But
More of a fun thing.
I'm doing it just for fun. This is kind of nice because I have top lighting on those lemons, and I think that's going to be kind of, which means that I can leave the light area at the top. And instead of this bare table underneath it, what I would like to do is to put a cloth under that. So I think what I'm going to do is sort of invent one here that maybe has a couple of little So that didn't take me very long. And yet what I've done here is make many of the most important decisions that I'm going to have to make. It's just in that one little thing. If I didn't like that, I could try doing something different with it. I could try making it horizontal. I could change the things around. But if I come up with something here that is more or less acceptable, and today that's all I'm asking of myself, then what I do is I'll take a red pencil and I'll square this off. I just drawing, the reason for the red is so that I can see through it. And I'll just divide this into quarters, vertically and horizontally. And do the same thing to my paper, very lightly, so that I can transfer those proportions that I have more or less worked out there onto the paper without too much distortion. And I don't want to do a lot of erasing in my drawing here, because if I rough up the surface of the watercolor paper, it's going to show as dark smudges in the final painting. Oh, incidentally, I should, while I'm doing this, I can talk at the same time. In case this video does not turn out, this is a paid commercial announcement. I have a video that I put out some years ago of the doing of a complete painting, one of the people paintings that I think some of you have seen. There are 3 old men sitting on bales of hay in front of a hardware store. It's a 2-hour video, and I did it myself. It's pretty crude. But all of them, you have it?
It's wonderful. I've watched it many, many times.
Well, okay, there's a testimonial. You're on the payroll, my dear. And I have that available. It costs $45. So if you have a little bit of extra money than what this video is going to be, that is a possibility. Also, I have a drawing class in Brookings that's starting a week from next Monday. It's a 5-day workshop, 6 hours a day for 5 days, and it's pretty intensive. And so, unfortunately, it's full. But I'm taking, yeah, right.
Much for that.
That's a big help, I know. But if there are, I have a couple of people on the waiting list now, and if there are enough people who want the class, I will give another section of it. Figure
What's the
out.
cost?
It costs $125 for the 5 days.
Liz, are you still doing the critiques or not?
Yes, I haven't been because we've been traveling this spring, but it's starting again on the 6th of July. On Friday mornings in Brookings, for 3 hours in the morning, people bring in work in progress or paintings that they have finished, and for some reason or another allow me to tear them apart.
How many can you bring?
As many as you want. Well, within limits, I suppose. No, we've never had more than we could handle.
Just leave your ego at home.
Oh, I'm pretty kind. I usually find something good about it. But it's kind of nice, and the people who have been doing this for some time claim that it really has helped them because it sometimes having 2 heads are better than one as long as they're on different people. And okay, now I've got enough here, I think, so that I can start. Maybe I better check in on this one here.
Liz, a potential buyer wonders if I could take the names of everyone interested in your video, their names and addresses.
Fine, that's fine.
Okay, I will do that.
If I mail it to you, there's $3 postage on it. But
48.
Hmm?
So it's 48.
It's 48 if I mail it to you. If there's some way that you can get up to Brookings and come out to my studio, you can have it for 45. Okay. Now I can start some serious considerations here. Yeah, right. This poses some rather interesting problems here because I have transparent glass to render, as well as flowers, which neither one of which I know how to paint. Well, you say, oh yeah, you know, just wait. Actually, it's kind of nice. I can remember going to demonstrations by so-called high-powered artists and watching them once in a while. If they make a goof, it is absolutely delightful.
I'm gonna find a little peek hole here. Did you hear me? I'm gonna find a peek hole.
You forgot how what I am.
I can see quite a bit.
Now, I'm spending some time on this drawing, which is okay, because the painting goes fast. The drawing is important. Without that, nice thing about doing things like lemons and flowers is that nobody can come around afterward and say, well, it didn't look like that.
Can you see it by that now? Oh, okay.
Whenever you draw anything that's round, like a vase or a cup and saucer or a bowl or something like that, be very, very careful about your ellipses, because it's very easy. It's very easy to get them so that they are out of perspective. As the bowl or vase or whatever it is gets closer to your horizon line, which is your line of sight,
That pencil mark won't show through the watercolor?
yeah, it will. It better, because if once I get a wash on this, if it doesn't show through, I've lost my drawing. However, it will erase through the watercolor. By the use of, I'm going to have to widen that bowl a little bit. I don't think I like it quite that narrow. It will erase through the watercolor with the use of a very mild drafting eraser. And if the watercolor is not too dark, if it's too dark, then of course it won't. But on the other hand, if it's too dark, you can't see the pencil line through it anyway.
No, you can't use
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't speak for everybody, but I can hear you. Now I can make those lemons a little bit more generous size. Because
Could you occasionally hold your picture up for those of
I
us?
sure will. If you want me to do that at any time except in the middle of a runny wash, just holler and I'll do it right now.
Holler.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's better.
How many minutes is your other tape, the $45
It's
one?
2 hours.
Okay, so, and this one is a half an hour.
This is 2 hours, and it's, of course, it's a painting that took me probably 20 hours to do. So it's, you know, it's been,
How to put lettering on glass, you know, on a glass behind the,
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, tell them what all it teaches. It teaches
Go
lots.
ahead, while I'm working, you talk, okay?
And let's see what. The hat is very interesting. No, it's just the whole painting. She just puts the whole painting. Yeah. Glad got a little detail. Detail. Oh, it wasn't that good. She explained it so well.
These flowers are going to be fun because this is it's a very, very deep, as you can see, a very deep red. And I don't have that color, in my palette. And I didn't bring any special colors today. Probably if I were going to be doing this as a, what would I call it, a serious painting, which I don't think this is going to be, I would have made some effort to work out that color ahead of time, but I'm going to try to reproduce it as well as I can with what is my standard palette, which I might as well tell you about right now, if you're interested. This is the basic colors that I use for just about everything. I use a quinacridone burnt scarlet, which is a Daniel Smith color, and it is the same, almost the same, but a little bit livelier as what they used to call brown madder, which has been determined to be somewhat fugitive. And so I have changed that now to
Is that brown matter alizarin?
yeah. And then I use a permanent rose, and a rose madder genuine, which I don't use very often, but when I use it, it's usually in a mixture. And let's see, what have I got here? Quinacridone gold, I believe it is. That also is a Daniel Smith color.
What's that similar to?
It is similar to a raw umber, but it's much stronger color and it's much more transparent, and it really altogether is a very lovely color. I have, you know, your palette changes as time goes on. Mine has changed. I keep adding some colors and removing others, and
You still use sap?
no. Well, I shouldn't say that. I use sap only for its dyeing qualities in certain mixtures, which I don't have it. Well, no, I don't think I even brought it with me today.
Like for your ferns that you scrape?
Yeah, right. When it's for things like that, where I wanted something that's I can put into a mixture that will dye the paper, so that I can scrape. I paint with the tail end of my brush as much as I do with the bristle end of it. Which maybe today I'll have a chance to. I don't know what's going to happen with these flowers, but I may be able to use that too and show you how I do it. Okay, there's all kinds of interesting little tails and hairs poking out from this thing.
What did you replace for sap? Did you find
I don't.
Oh, you
I
just
don't,
mix it.
normally I don't use any tube greens.
Is alizarin crimson off your list now?
I have always hated alizarin crimson.
There you go.
I have always hated it. It is a dull color.
An unequivocal answer, that's what we want.
Boy, you bet. Now I'm going to change the shape of these leaves here a little bit because I want to be able to connect this to the side of the painting over here. So I'm just kind of, I'm inventing leaves here. It's not necessary, as I say, nobody's going to be able to come along afterwards and say, but that's not where that leaf was, because these will be dead then and they'll be gone and nobody will ever know. And I'm not going to tell them.
But we know.
And you'll tell, I know you
And
will.
I'll tell. For a price.
Ensure you're in silence here.
Difficult.
Yeah, I'll bet you're expensive.
Do you paint a certain brand name?
Mostly I cleave to Winsor Newton for most things. Now, since Daniel Smith has come out with his line of watercolors, I am finding that they are very high quality. The ones I've tried, I don't have too many of them, but the ones I've tried are very good. And so I'm using some of those. For example, there's one of his colors which I particularly like. It's called Indian Throne Blue, and I used to use indigo. And Indian Throne Blue. It's spelled, I think, just about like it sounds. As I say, it's a Daniel Smith color. And
It's lighter than indigo.
no, it's much darker and it's much more intense, and it's a very lively blue. It's got a lot of zip to it. I mean, it really is blue. Indigo goes gray well, it's gray to begin with, but it also goes gray in mixtures.
Could you hold it up again?
You betcha. Kind of inventing a plaid here. Check.
What kind of pencil are you using, Liz?
This is actually it's a drafting pencil. It's a lead holder. It's not really a pencil. It's just a thing that just you can slip a lead into of different grades and depth perception.
What size are you using now?
This is a grade B lead, which is the one I like for sketching on watercolor paper because it's soft enough to erase easily, and yet it is, I'm taking out that faint grid line that I put in there before. And it's very easy to sharpen. If I want a really sharp point on it, I have a little gidget here. It's a little thing, I just stick it in there and turn it a couple of times, and I can come out with a needle tip on the pencil. This has little stainless steel cutters in it that just go around and sharpen it.
Liz, I do very little watercolor, but I found when I erased, then it made the paper behave differently, and do you have a special touch or is it a heavy paper or what? 'Cause
Well, I use a special eraser, for one thing. This eraser that I'm using is called a Magic Rub, and it really is a drafting eraser. It's a plastic, and it is probably the least damaging. It's even milder than a pink pearl or art gum, and it does a better job of cutting through the, well, I don't know whether that's going to turn out to be a plaid or not, but we'll hope. Anyway, I'm just barely touching the paper with this eraser now, and I'm not doing it just in a straight line. I'm kind of just sort of going over that so that if it does discolor the wash behind it some, it won't matter too much. All right, now we're ready to start splashing. Now, I have blue in the bowl. I want the yellow of the lemons to be absolutely clean and perfect. But because of the dark roses, I think what I'm going to want is a light background. I'm going to make this a fairly high key. I'm just talking out loud now. This is what's going through my head, so if my syntax isn't perfect, forgive me. I'm just thinking now, I've got the red roses here. I can certainly introduce some. Help bring that over here. I've got the yellow echoed. I can put some little bit of the yellow up in here. So I think I probably can go with a pretty neutral background. Pretty neutral background. Ah, yes. A chance to use my favorite triad. You guys know what a triad is? Everybody knows what a triad is. Triad is any combination of the three primary colors from which you can mix just about any other color that you want. And different triads will produce different combinations of color. Turn this around. Stay. Sit, stay. That doesn't work at home either. Okay, so I'm going to mix up quite a quantity. I'll use that brush. Use this one. I started to talk about materials and tools and so forth. I have at home probably a complete set of red sable brushes that I never use anymore. The only sable brush that I use is this one, which is a Grumbacher Aquarelle, and it's a red sable. These things sell for about $150 now. I've had this one for so long. I think I paid $4.50 for it. Something like that. I don't remember.
I
But
have some sable brushes from when I was 16.
well, if you take care of them, they last forever. Anyway, this is a marvelous brush, and I would not replace this with a synthetic under any circumstances. But as far as the other red sables are concerned, Chief Joe, and believe me, I'm not on his payroll, although I probably could be. Chief Joe has come up with the answer to a watercolorist's prayer, in that he has come up with this whole series of brushes called Golden Fleece. They're probably the cheapest brushes you can buy. They're very, very inexpensive. And they're the best brushes I have come across. I use shadows down here at the bottom, but I wanted to kind of cover a little bit of that white paper down there so that I can get a better idea of the values that I need to hold in the rest of these objects. After all, this is really what I'm painting. I'm not painting all the rest of this stuff, but I want to kind of push that back just a little bit so I can see the values a little bit more clearly. Okay. Everybody else can see? Okay. All right, now, I think I'll just start putting in some underpainting here. I'm going to underpaint the roses now also to kind of just establish my values in the color so that as I go along I'll have a better handle on where I'm heading. So I'm going to underpaint those because they're very dark. I'm going to underpaint them with a really bright pink. This is, again, Permanent Rose. And I'm just using the pure color because I'm going to be covering most of it up. And I want it to be a fairly good zippity-doo type pink. And because I'm not really too awfully worried about the shape of these roses, I can kind of make them, roughly any shape that I choose, really. And they'll come out maybe looking like roses. She said confidently, not knowing anything about flower painting. That's a pretty color. Well, it's the brightest pink I've got. And as I say, if I had thought, or if I'd known, I didn't know what I was going to paint until about 10 minutes before I left the house this morning. So, can't exactly say.
Artists don't have to plan, that's a given.
No, that is definitely, that is not a given.
Yeah, I missed that lesson.
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Oh, is that right?
Oh,
Doesn't that sound ominous?
yes.
May we quote you?
Well, I'm quoting somebody else, so yes, be not original. These are going to be fun to paint. I hope I can do it.
Whatever happened to the watercolor that you did for us last time? It was a whole city made of vegetables.
Ah!
There was carrots and broccoli, and we
Yeah.
wanted that picture.
Somebody bought it. Can you
Oh.
believe that?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's gorgeous.
Eggplant.
Eggplants.
Well, I did. If I'd known you wanted vegetables.
No, this is nice. It's good.
When you first had tried to watercolor after you had lost your eye, you had a lot of difficulty, did you?
I still do.
Oh, you do? I just wondered how that worked.
Well, you know, I started off thinking, by gosh, I'm not going to let this get me. And it's not going to make any difference. I can overcome this. No big deal. And so I bravely jumped in. And over the last 2.5, 3 years, I have discovered that in spite of my good intentions, it really made a big difference. And there's just no substitute for sight.
That's right.
And if you can't see it, you can't paint it.
So the composer managed to do Beethoven, all those composers can do it deaf, but artists can't do it blind.
Well, I think you can. I've always said that I was saving sculpture for when I lost my sight.
Ah.
But and surprisingly enough, I make jewelry, and although it also is difficult to the big problem is the depth perception.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems. But I've had to recant some of my earlier brave resolve because I'm finding that I absolutely cannot see enough detail to paint the same way that I used to. Now, that doesn't mean I can't paint. It just means that it is a lot of hard work now, whereas it used to be easy because I could see what I was doing. Now I have to really struggle, and it stops being fun. And I'm just scooping up the extra paint here on these little things. Okay, I think now I'll do somewhat the same thing with the lemons.
Is it hold up time or does that ruin your watercolor?
What? Hold up, hold up.
Well, you got us fooled.
Well, I'm really whistling in the dark myself. I'm going by the graveyard at midnight. Okay, bigger brush. Now I'm going to do these lemons next. And I'm going to do them one at a time, I think. Get the brush ready here. There are some very interesting colors in these lemons. I'm going to start at the back and work forward. Because I have this high overhead light, I'm going to be modeling these things one at a time. And there is a highlight right on the top of each one, so I have to do one and wait until it dries and then go on to the next. And again, I'm taking and just softening the edge a little bit. And while I have it there, I'm going to pick up just a wee bit of, what do I want here, purple.
Did you start fender painting with a Aurelian or something?
This is Aurelian, yeah. Now I'm using purple for the shadows here. Why?
It's complimentary.
Amen.
Hey,
Head of the class.
show off. Teacher's pet.
Alumni.
Probably Windsor Violet, so you're not gonna.
This is ultramarine
Violet.
violet. And I think this is also a Daniel Smith color, if I'm not mistaken. There. Journal vigilance. Is come down here and do the little. Because when I do the texture in this vase, these lines all come down and go into that place. I need to isolate that edge with biscuit so that when I come down with those lines, I will still have a clean edge where that lemon comes along. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to make that a nice sharp line. So, being as foresighted as I am, I think I can't really put it
You
all.
ladies that are standing, the best seats in the house are right behind, over here by the desk if you want to get a sideways look like we have. You'll have to bring your own chair with you, however. Folding chairs, yeah. Bonnie, this is a great, if you could bring a chair, this is a great seat here. Oh. So she's just vacating. No, she's fully all along. She's real low.
Okay, it's been very perfect.
And add some, what will I add to it? Let's see. What do I have to add? Yeah, that's an interesting thing to do. I haven't done it yet, I was just experimenting. I'm going to add some, of all dumb things, I'm going to put some cad red in it.
Some what?
Cad red,
Oh,
which is going to warm it up and make it a little bit more neutral. I want it to be different than the background. Okay, here goes nothing.
what is the purpose?
Of what?
Yeah, what you're doing?
Of what? You know, I've asked myself that many times. You mean, why did I warm it up?
Yeah,
I warmed it up because I want it to stand out and be different than the background.
oh, I can,
Because the background is gray. And so now I'm going to just have to kind of approximate, oh, wait a minute, before I do that. Better carry on here. I'm going to put a little bit of resist on the on that lemon. I don't care about the vase because it's going to be darker anyway. But the lemon is going to be lighter. And I don't want to.
What's resist?
Resist is like a masquerade or a biscuit. It's a rubber, a latex type of emulsion that is water soluble until it's dry. And I can paint over it once it's dry, and it just preserves the white paper underneath. It'll come right off.
Different than Misfit, or?
They're all just brand
They're
names.
the same, oh.
It's the brand names of the same thing. Misfit is one, Masquerade is another. This is,
So you're not gonna paint the vase, you're just gonna put that on?
no, I'm not going to paint the vase with this. No, I'm going to paint the lemon down at the bottom of the vase, or just the top of the lemon, anyway, with it.
Did you put soap on your approach or?
Yes, this mascoid, or misket, or whatever you want to call it, is very hard on brushes. If it dries in the heel of a brush, the brush is all but ruined. So I put soap in it, and that protects the bristles so that the rubber can't get down in there and dry. And as long as I wash it out, what am I looking at here?
You just use a liquid soap?
No, I don't. Liquid soap really doesn't do as good a job of protecting it as solid soap is. This is just ordinary face soap. Actually, I keep losing these things. I had some. What I do is take one of these little hotel bars and just cut a chunk off and put it in a little box. But I can't find it. I mean, I lost it someplace. So what I did this time was I just shaved a bunch of face soap and then wet it and put it in a little box. It does the same thing. Okay, now I need to dry that first before I go too much farther. You have to be careful drying misket with a hairdryer because you can cook it very easily. If it gets too cooked, it polymerizes, and then you can't get it off for love nor money. It just turns into like a varnish. And this is very hot, so I don't think that's
Do you have trouble with mildew with your paints?
some colors, yes, I do. If they're shut up for any length of time. See, this is my own little weird system here. I take regular tube paint, squeeze it out into these little cups. And if I don't use a color for any length of time, and it's closed up like that, it will mildew. Particularly like cerulean blue is very bad. Windsor blue is very bad. Windsor green is very bad. I don't use those colors. I do use cerulean. Sometimes Meridian will do it too. A lot of colors don't, but those do.
That mildew, you can just wash that off?
I just scrape the mildew off and go ahead and use it. Doesn't seem to hurt it any. Okay, now, where was I?
Is there anyone to babysit the gallery Sunday and Monday? We have a fabulous.
Okay, I'm just really kind of feeling my way along with this vase because there's a lot of texture to it, but I'm not going to try to do every single little gadget in it. I just want to kind of get the general feel for it here. You'll see me every so often reach over here. If I were you, I'd cancel my Acapulco reservations.
Don't give up your night job.
Right.
Be sure and sign our book when you go out.
Okay, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm having fun. I'll hold this up for the moment. What I'm trying to do is to develop the texturing in that glass.
I think you did it.
Well, I still have to put the stems and things in.
Oh,
But,
wonderful.
and I'll wait until that dries.
I'm learning a lot. I don't know what it'll stick there or not.
You probably are learning what not to do more than All right, I think I need a smaller brush. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this Aureolin yellow that I had mixed up here. Not mixed, it's just sitting there, actually. And I'm going to put some Antwerp blue with it to get a nice green. But because I don't want a grassy green, I want kind of on the olivey side. It needs to be a little darker than that too, so beef those colors up somewhat. I'm going to come in and add just a touch of this pink to it. And that's going to just make it a little darker so that it will look like stem color. Oftentimes as I'm painting, rather than dip over here and get more color, I'll use something that I already have on my palette. I'll take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of something else to mix up a totally new color. And somehow or another, I'm not quite sure how it happens, but somehow or another that does seem to lend more color harmony to your picture. If there's a little bit of pink in the green and a little bit of green in the pink and so forth, that's definitely not dark enough. So rather than have to go over it again. My theory is that it's almost impossible in watercolor to get mud as long as it is applied on the paper, whatever color you mix up in your palette, as long as you put it on your paper positively with one brush stroke. Do it just once. And it will still look like a good, clean, clear color, even though it's mud on the palette. More mud. I'm going to go to kind of the pink here for the rose stems. I see pink in them. This is fun. I should have done this a long time ago. Okay, that's good enough for now. back and work on the lemon some more. Everybody thoroughly bored?
They're holding their breath with you.
Take a little of that green and feed it into my lemon here.
What color did you use for the base veins, I guess you'd call it?
The gray,
Yeah.
this,
Uh-huh.
I used this same gray that I mixed up here, but I added a little bit of cad red to it to give it a little bit more zip and to darken it. And I'm going to take a little bit of new gamboge here, just a little bit to strengthen this yellow. You, I'm sure, are aware of the fact that the most brilliant color that you see in any object occurs right at the edge of the shadow. Between where the light and the dark meet is where you see the really true hue.
When do you take a rest?
When do I take a rest?
Uh-huh.
I don't. I don't usually.
It is straight through, huh?
Well, you know, I get started on something. I'm sure that you probably do the same thing. I get started on something and I get interested in it. And
What's in the computer?
it just, the time just goes and all of a sudden I realize how tired I am. By that time, it's cocktail hour.
Hey, better after cocktail?
You know, that's something I've never been able to do, although I have painted watercolors with beer sometimes by accident. And coffee.
Fred?
Years ago, I used to do a lot of painting up at high altitudes, up in the mountains. And I would go out in the morning with 2 canvases, 2 pieces of stretched paper, and 2 beers, and my paints and so forth. And one beer I could have after I finished the first painting, the other beer I could have after I finished the second painting. That's called motivation.
Chocolate works the same way.
No, I didn't deny myself chocolate in the meantime.
I'll make just a quick announcement if I may.
Okay, hold up time. Sponge, and he'd say scalpel, and then he'd say oops. And he'll try to say, I know what I mean when I say oops. What do you mean when you say oops? livening things up. That's what it's been needing, is a little bit of.
Now you mix that green.
Yes. I always mix greens. The only green I have in my palette, only two green I have in my palette is Viridian, and I use that for mixing, strictly for mixing. Hardly ever use it otherwise.
She's outside, she's in now.
Now, Lisa, are you thinking your stems are gonna be lighter than your leaves?
Yeah. They're not only going to be lighter, but they're going to be a different color. The stems tend to be kind of reddish in this kind of rose, and there's little red edges along the edges of the leaves as well. Again, I'm picking up a little color here to give some shape to these leaves. Sounds like a funeral parlor. He's creeping around here whispering.
Well, they won't let me make any noise.
They won't let you make any noise?
No, didn't you see the shh back there? Well,
No, I didn't. Are they being mean to you, Lila? Okay. Now, in a sense, this green I'm putting up here is also just an underpainting because actually these little hairy gadgets up here are largely red. But there is some green to them, so I'm using the green as an underpainting for what will eventually be the red.
Sylvia, is this tape 2? Is this tape 2?
Does she mean tape also, or just?
Shall I say it's 2 or 3?
One of the above.
2?
If you put a flamingo in, it might fire.
You want a flamingo? One wants a flamingo.
That's that, I never will forget that one.
What was that?
Flamingos?
Flamingos?
Yeah, when you did the whole long,
Oh, those flamingos.
yeah,
Oh, that was a long
how
time
many
ago.
years ago?
Gee whiz, that must be 15 years ago.
Well, that couple had the gallery up on the South Jetty,
Yeah?
and Bandon was there.
Mick and the Norwegian lady.
Well, this is in Bandon.
No, no,
Oh,
no.
Bandon.
No, this was Duffy and Vanita. Duffy and Vanita Stender had that little gallery, the Great Whale.
Are you thinking of Nick and Ellen?
Yeah,
They were from Berkeley, so I'm talking about.
yeah. Uh-huh.
This was in Bandon. Some friends of, I think weren't they friends of yours, Liz?
Yeah, I've known him for
I
years.
can't remember who it was.
The people that own the gallery?
Yeah. They,
You made a red in that, is that the reddish mixture?
no, that's just more green.
Can you reach under her chair and you get one of the charts? See that little red line?
Like leaves.
That's great. And then she'll unhook it for you. And if you give me the other gallery, we'll be charging it. Okay, just unsnap it.
I don't think we better go into the video in business.
It comes right I mean, it's effortless if you do it the right way. Oh, you snap everything.
I've got to get put on a burst of speed here. I'm taking too long. It's almost 2 o'clock. I've only got till 4.
Right.
Guys are very patient and very nice, very kind to an old favorite.
You know, the painting I like so much of yours is the one where the people are all looking out into the ocean and you see all their backsides.
Yeah. I did a whole series of those.
Oh, I get such a kick out of that.
Those were fun because that was a major discovery. I was at the zoo in San Francisco one day with my sister, and I was just taking pictures of people who know to paint, and nobody would turn around and face towards me. They were all looking at the elephants. And it suddenly dawned on me, looking at this row of backsides, that they were much more interesting than the fronts.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a major breakthrough. I must have made 15 paintings of backsides.
That's the worst part of all.
That's it, true.
There you go.
When you were lifting, what were you lifting?
On the leaves, I put down a blob of dark green, and then I would take a brush that was clean, a clean brush, with squeezed out, so it was not a thirsty brush, and then just sopped up some of the paint.
For the bands?
Yeah, well, not for the bands exactly, but just for highlights, to give them a little bit of curl and a little bit of motion to them. I'll come in and put the veins in them afterwards. The veins actually are a little darker, so that'll be easy to do. Now, I think what I need to do is to finish the stems and things, so that's my next job here. It's more of my pink. Did you guys hear speaking of jokes, did you hear the one about the 2 buzzards that got on the airplane? And each buzzard was carrying 2 dead raccoons.
2 dead raccoons?
2 dead raccoons.
Okay.
And the stewardess met them at the guard and said, "I'm very sorry, sir, but only 1 carry-on per passenger." That's pretty bad. Yeah, the dirty ones I don't dare tell in public.
But on a video.
I have to pretend like I'm a little old gray-haired lady. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm taking some of this pink and a little bit of the green, but mostly the pink, and I'm going to come up and put the reds and things in the stems. So this is going to take a few minutes. This old business, I have to have a brush with clear water in it in my hand or I'm helpless.
That paper has to be a special paper for you to put it on and stretch it like that, doesn't
Well, it's regular watercolor paper.
it? It is.
It's just regular, it's Arches 140-pound watercolor paper. It's not anything unusual.
Is it over canvas or?
No,
No?
not at all. Not at all. It's tough. It's really tough paper. I love all these little whiskers here that are sticking out from this thing.
I have a question, but I don't know if it's appropriate.
Ain't no such thing as an inappropriate question.
How do you decide how you price your film, your pictures?
Well, that's a toughie. The best thing to do is to, when you're first starting out, it's a lot easier to raise your prices than it is to lower them. So if you start out too high, chances are you're going to have to someday, if you want to sell them at all, you might have to lower your prices. So the best thing to do is to go by experience. In other words, the first painting I ever sold in my life, I sold for $10, and I was delighted to get that. But then, when that one sold almost immediately, the next one I sold for $25. And the next one after that I sold for $35, and so on. As long as
But
you...
at least you started out in dollars.
True.
As opposed to bartering.
I believe in bartering.
I do too.
I have a complete art display in my home.
Barter.
And I only paid for one.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, artists trade paintings all the time.
Liz is the only one that hasn't traded with me.
Yep. Boy, that one almost hit me between the shoulder blades.
It's recording too.
Well, I traded paintings for a piano once.
Yeah.
I didn't pay a dental bill for about 4 years one time in Brookings because the dentist took a liking to my paintings.
Surely you're getting your knee surgery done.
Well, I had to pay for that. But on the other hand, Dr. Lau's been very, he's commissioned probably about 6 or 7 paintings.
Yeah.
Dr. Lau did your knee?
Yeah.
I'm going to go to him on the 2nd and hope he'll try to do something for some of my problems.
Good. I think he's pretty good.
I'd like to be, I said, as long as I'm going to live 100 years, I might as well get in shape.
That's right. I always said if I knew I was going to live so long, I would have taken better care of myself.
Right, absolutely.
Okay. I'm sorry this is kind of laborious here, but it's necessary.
Liz, are you still doing pastels?
I'm having a great deal of fun with pastels, yes. I am doing more pastels than I am water. Matter of fact, I'm not doing any watercolor, so. Yes. But as I say, I'm still just learning. I don't count myself as being a pastelist at this point.
Don't you find them quite easy?
Easy? God, no.
I love that answer.
Anything is easy to do. No, anything is easy to do unless you really want to do it well. And if you are
Compared to watercolors, they have to be easy.
Oh, I think they're probably easier than watercolors. But even so, it's like playing an instrument, you know. I mean, anybody can pick up you can sit down at the piano and go dingle-dingle-dingle and play chopsticks or something, but if you really want to play it well, it's a different kind of a story. And
What's your instrument?
my instrument?
Uh-huh.
Currently, it's a bassoon.
What do you play with? Do you play the bassoon with the orchestra?
Mhm. It's an electronic bassoon.
Oh, is it your husband's wonderful thing that
That
he's so
Yamaha
grateful?
thing, yeah. It makes a wonderful bassoon sound,
Yeah.
and I'm having loads of fun being a bassoonist.
But what were you before that?
I played the flute before that, a violin before that. I've also
Now, each orchestra quality, you played the orchestra, in the orchestra with both those instruments, did you not?
yes.
Is everyone
Yeah,
a little bit
learn more
awestruck by that?
Yes.
Oh, that's
I've been playing the cello for years and I'm not quite up to speed at playing with the orchestra.
well, you might be surprised.
I would be more than surprised, stunned. And so would the people that play with me. You know, Sybil and Joni play with me. They have not encouraged me to join the orchestra. Not yet.
When you get older.
Play string bass in a trio, jazz trio, and on the same instrument. I'm putting just little red diddles around the edge of these leaves because they have them.
Sure, helps them a lot, though.
Well, it kind of sparks it up a little bit. And I'm just
Tell me why did you quit the violin?
my
You are not getting this tape for $10.
my first husband did not like it,
I'll be
and
done.
so I quit, which is the stupidest thing I ever did in my
Four
life.
tapes and growing.
It wasn't worth it.
Yes, I think violin is so beautiful.
It is. It is a beautiful instrument. There's no question about it. And I'm very
Scratch that.
Liz, this is so neat.
What?
Isn't it terrific?
Time to hold it up? Okay, what I'm doing now, I'm just putting the detailing in the leaves. And a gray that I had here to begin with, this blue-gray type of thing, I'm going to add a little bit more blue to it, except this time I'm going to add cobalt. And to cut that blue down a little bit, because this is really quite a, oh, I can have some fun with that. I think I'm going to add a little bit of, yeah, that's better.
What?
A little,
She talks to herself.
yeah. I added a little bit of the burnt quinacridone scarlet to it. And so what I'm going to do now is, in one swoop here, I'm going to lay this in, and then I'm going to start playing with it to get that glaze.
That great brush sure helps up there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, these brushes are absolutely super. I just love them. They hold a lot of paint. They keep their points a lot longer than sables do. And they're so cheap that you can have a half a dozen of them
Where do you get them?
from Cheap Joe.
Cheap, Joe? I heard of it.
Yeah.
We have his catalog.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Okay, now.
They may have some fun figure out on a picnic or something. They're really like.
Now, while this is wet, I to start, I'm going to take a little bit of that. Remember I mentioned Indian Throne Blue? Remember the Indian Throne Blue I mentioned before?
No.
Okay. I'm going to take some of that and green it a little bit.
If you don't have that, what would be equivalent? I mean,
Oh, an ultramarine. Probably an ultramarine.
What's the difference between French ultramarine and just ultramarine?
Well, technically speaking, French ultramarine is a synthetic ultramarine, and plain ultramarine is ground up lapis.
So French ultramarine shouldn't cost as much then? Is that
Well,
right? In that respect?
actually, it's a pretty expensive color anyway. I think Daniel Smith is the one that's come out with these old traditional colors that are supposedly made the same way that they used to be made. So that would mean that the ultramarine was made with lapis. Whether it actually is or not, I don't know.
You know, I've never thought of turning it over. And that's
Oh,
such
yeah?
Yeah, no, that's such a good,
Yeah, that is.
yeah, right, because,
Yeah. 'Cause sometimes you want to get it to run.
well, I mean, I turn over, but I mean, for these other abstract grounds, but not for realistic ones.
Well, you know, half gravity works for you.
No,
with
yeah.
watercolor. And so, by manipulating gravity a little bit, you can do wonders. I'm going to put a little yellow over here as a reflection, and I'm going to put a little.
Well, if you haven't painted for 3 years, you haven't lost it.
Bless your heart, Lynn.
No,
Thank
really,
you.
yeah. Because you know you do lose it if you don't
Sure
use
do.
it.
Use it or lose it.
Your handicap is an encouragement to us.
Well,
True.
Well,
actually, it's
because as people get elderly, I mean, their vision dims, and
Tell me about it.
yeah, some of them will think, well, I can't paint anymore.
better wait for the. What I want to do now is this is very wet, and I've got some dark in there and some light. I want to wait until it dries just a little bit more, and then I'm going to start floating water into that to get it to run and burble and drip and so forth, so I can get somewhat of that glaze texture into it. I want it to run, so.
Photography seems to be the worst for eyesight. I mean, if my eyes or glasses need adjusting, I can tell right away because all my
Yeah.
with my big camera, they're out of focus.
Are you trying to make, are you going to get blossoms that way then? Is that
I'm trying to get dribbles,
dribbles, not blossoms? So
not blossoms, but dribbles.
Well, I was blind on one eye, or practically blind. I couldn't see anything at all. I was surprised. I went to have a driver's test in the one eye. It was perfect, you know. And I took the other eye, and I said, forget it. I couldn't see a darn thing. And
you didn't even realize that.
I didn't realize it. And then they made me have the cataract removed of that eye. That eye was better than the other one.
So did you have a cataract on the other one?
Yeah, I had one on each eye.
Yeah, so you have that one. They say,
They're
isn't
both-
that a wonderful thing?
They removed them, and the only thing is now I have distant vision.
Did you not have any glasses or anything?
Yeah, I cannot, I only
Yeah.
have to use glasses, but I have to try to use mine.
I've certainly got a stretcher for this. I just take the time to.
Yeah,
you never paint on 300 pound, Liz.
No, I don't like 300 pounds.
Why don't you like it? Because I don't like sheets.
Well, for
It
one
doesn't
thing-
work right or something.
Well, it's got an awful lot of sizing in it, for one thing, much more sizing than I like. And they say that you don't have to stretch it. That may be, but it still buckles. It buckles just enough to be enormously annoying to me. It goes this way, you know, just big things like that. So If you're painting very wet, your paint just goes down into the valleys, and you have no control over it.
If you soak that long enough in the bathtub, could you get some of that sizing off?
Yeah, you have to. I always do that if I get stuck with using it, which I try not to because I really don't like it. I don't like the texture of it, I don't like the surface of it.
Which paper is that?
300
I'm talking about
pound.
300 pound.
Yeah, I put a wet towel on.
But this is rough, you're using
This is rough.
140 rough.
That's right. Stretching it tends to take some of the roughness out of it. It gets stripped.
Does it make it down to like a cold press then?
No,
No, not that's
not that much.
But you could do this with cold press water.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You can do a hot press. Yeah, you can stretch any paper, but you can't stretch 300 pound paper. It's too stiff. It's too much cardboarding. But it had such an unfriendly surface. It's got so much sizing in it, and it still buckles when you paint wet
I'm
on it.
happy to hear you say that because it's expensive.
It's too expensive to buy anyway, so.
Well, Doris told my son in his very first
No, now don't blame Doris.
to not use anything else but elephant 300 pounds.
I've never used an
Okay. Something about this.
Close, but you know exactly. See, if you're watercolor.
What'd you say?
Yeah, that's right.
How many paintings you have
And
at
Wayne
Cert
likes
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
How many paintings do I have at Sutter Coast? Is that what you said? I have 3. There's one large one in the lobby of a carousel horse,
And then there's one.
Then there's the old Sutter Coast Hospital.
and there's the one of the old Sutter Coast Hospital.
And the people
And then
sitting
there's
on the
one
Oh,
of
the
the
property.
people on the
seaside,
bench.
that's what it
Yeah,
was
and one of the
called.
3 gals on the bench. I think those are the only 3 that are there.
And then the building right behind you, you have the triptych in the lobby.
What kind?
Triptych.
Yeah, there's a mural in the lobby and a
Rhododendron?
Of rhododendrons.
Is that yours? Is that-
And then, that's hers. And then Dr. Lau, his whole office is filled with,
There's one of hers on the stairway.
and the stairwell going up,
Landing.
right.
Oh, you're talking about the building behind the,
Where all the doctors
mm-hmm,
hang out.
yeah.
But you don't wanna go.
When I first saw them, I was trying to figure out a way I could steal them.
They do get stolen.
Do they really?
Yes, they do.
Boy, I wish I had that one with them on the bench.
They've got some kind of hookup that they mount them. They get taken off the wall because they do get taken off.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I just thought-
Dr. Lau.
I'm very
They had
disappointed.
just had some prints of mine and they got packed
Oh,
off.
really? Good for you. Well, that's the greatest compliment.
They say
That's
double
the
your
way I
prices
take
if that's
it,
the
sure.
case.
Oh,
We
you know,
apologize for not
Well, you
having them out
jail,
front
just
because
steal
people
your
were stealing, because they were small.
Yeah, and I'm jealous now.
Well,
Nobody
they,
stole mine.
they even take big ones because we eat at restaurant in, I can't think of the name, but in Routines. And these are more Chinese, because that's a
Yeah,
Chinese.
without my paintings.
And they stole one of them. And then they were good sized. I don't know how they
This
managed.
is are heavy enough,
Yeah,
big enough.
yeah.
I don't think they could put them under their coat.
I think they got them kind of screwed to the walls.
Yeah, I
don't
think they do. They probably
Yeah,
do.
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And in the hospital, I'm sure they do.
Would you explain again how you put that paper on that stretcher?
I sure will. Can you wait just a moment?
Sure.
I will do it with hand gestures.
Friendly.
Do you have any new photos of books and music or whatever it's
Oh,
called?
words and pictures?
Words and pictures.
I have one of my pastels down there. A
Oh,
large-
no.
What are you
I'm
doing
surprised
for
to see the
subject matter
pastel.
for pastel?
What?
What kind of subject matter are you doing?
Well, this, I'm still experimenting with that. I do all kinds of different things. This
You can do
particular,
anything with a pastel.
just about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a lot. Well, of course, I've done pastel portraits for some time, and probably my masterpiece is the one I did that's at the senior center of my sister, who passed away about 6 years ago, and they wanted she was quite a benefactor of theirs, and they commissioned me to do a portrait, which I did in pastel. And I must say, with all due modesty, it's probably the best thing I've ever done.
Well,
So
because
if it's better
out of
than
a labor of love.
the only
See, she,
I'm just kind of adjusting some of the values down here right now. I'm waiting for this to dry. I think what I can do now probably is take off the, no I won't, take it all back. I'm going to do a little bit more modeling on the cloth here. I need to have a wee bit more stuff. Yeah, this really works. My husband made this for me. It's a great surface to mix paint on because it doesn't ball up. You know how on plastic palettes the paint oftentimes will. It's made of an eggshell finished formica that's been scrubbed so that the wax is off of it, and it just works like a charm. No, it does not stain, and it doesn't ball up, which is very annoying.
little temper pots.
These are just those little fisherman's things, you know, that they buy them in hardware stores and stuff. And then I just squeeze the color out.
This has a top?
No. These all screw together, you see, so that they're covered up. And I can only I just put out the colors that I intend to use. So, because I have a lot more colors that I just use occasionally, so if I'm doing something where I need a specific color, well, I'll just put it in there. Okay, I think I'm going to put that now. All right, time for the roses.
Okay.
Time for the roses. And this is going to be trial and error because I have no idea how I'm going to mix up that color. I don't have anything even remotely resembling it. Okay. Time for some experimentation here.
Oh, really? Oh, she paints the roses from the other side.
Just testing colors. Don't you? You're kidding.
Good idea. Oh.
I'm making a mess. She's starting over again.
She doesn't like it, so she's starting over.
So what I want to do, I don't have the right colors to paint that really deep, rich red, I don't think. So what I want to do is do a few experiments on the back side of this paper to
What
see.
about having a little test sheet?
I could do that too, but I didn't have any. I don't have one. What's wrong with the back of this? What's wrong with
Well,
this?
some
Oh, I
people,
don't know because I have pictures on both sides. But I mean, I didn't think you
some
did.
people don't like that painting. They turn the paper over and do a different.
Well, you
paint.
bet.
Yeah, well, you
That's
can't do
terrible.
that if you stretch your paper this way.
That's terrible because Doris Dalbeck does that all the time, and we love the one that she says is no good.
Yeah, right.
And then she has two great paintings on. What do you do?
Well, Dorothy Isherwood does the
Oh
same
yeah, I
thing.
do
Oh,
that.
that's so
Yeah.
bad.
It
Yeah.
is?
You give me
Well-
a right arm for the one they say is no good.
Well, you can always have one out, and then later you can turn it over.
Yeah.
Yeah, what the heck?
But they're framing the one that you like, and they're putting the other one on the front. I mean, they're both good. Put it on a music stand and you're looking at your
Well, you only pay
save for one painting. You got two.
Sure.
So I'm just making,
That's pretty close.
What'd you find end up with, Liz?
I haven't ended up yet.
She's experimenting right at this point.
I'm hoping that someday I can find a video doctor to rescue the video from last year where you painted the world's greatest broccoli.
World's
The
greatest
carrots,
what?
the broccoli, she painted broccoli
Broccoli.
with just discrete uses of salt. Suddenly, bang, here was this incredibly textured broccoli.
I liked it when she did the corn.
And the carrots.
The corn though, when she just wiped out with
Yeah,
the
just
end
a
of the
flick
brush.
of the wrist for the corn.
It's great to be known as a specialist.
Vegetable
And her
special.
eggplant was to die
Yeah. That whole meal was
for.
one.
Yeah, the whole thing. And the thing is that,
Put
you
enough
know,
garlic
from
in
a
it.
distance, it looked like a city in the sunset. You know, it was just, you know, the carrots were kind of towers and.
I know, I think that's
I don't
probably
know
about as
where
close
I'm
as I'm gonna get.
Well, it looks good.
That's probably from this.
And that doesn't show through in any way.
Oh, no, not at all.
You know,
Not
if you
that
put
much.
salt on one side and then you turn it over and do a painting on the other side, the salt has worked through and you will.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never done that.
Well, because you don't have to do two sides. You
Okay.
get it probably in one.
What I wound up doing here is starting off with the burnt quinacridone. I don't think this is going to be the end all of everything, but this burnt quinacridone coral, rather strong. And then I have adulterated it with the permanent rose.
What was the first one, Liz? I was in that.
Burnt quinacridone scarlet.
Remember that, Doris. You're going to be
That's
remembering.
similar to the brown matter of alizarin.
I can't even write it down, so you're going to remember.
I'm going to have to do this with the two glasses.
Yeah, I know, but it's
Burnt quinacridone scarlet. If you did
Burnt quinacridone scarlet.
You want to write it down?
Can't even pronounce it. What did you do to it? You had altered it with something else.
Yeah, that's why we can't write it out because we can't spell it. We can't remember it because we can't say it.
Oh, that blue. Ultramarine blue.
Well, those are just miscellaneous. This is salt, this is a rubber cement paper, these are erasers, this is my pencil sharpener. Just, little stuff. Little stuff. That's all. Ah!
Aunt Rose is just velvet.
That's, there's a little fishing lure thing. No. When you keep it and show it, or do you sell it, or when you
Sell it.
yeah.
Nothing's free around here.
I know, I
What's
know.
that?
So what? Sell my video.
And it just went up from $10 to $40 because there's so many 4 tapes. This is worth it. We can change the film to the camera.
brush or switch here.
I just wonder if you ever ran into that.
She's juggling three.
Ooh, look at the detail. Oh. I think you found yourself a new subject matter.
Well, should have one on there already, but I don't know. Well, I just want to know.
Was it Helen, what was her name? She's passed away, but she was great with
This
colors.
dark here,
Helen Van
that's
Yeah.
Indian Throne Blue.
And she was on TV. She was so good. And she was doing highlights of flowers. Yeah. Half the people that are on there now are dead.
Well, I does too. For a while, I was sitting in my friends were going, gee, everybody's dying.
It's my grandmother, she's like, nobody comes to visit me anymore. They're gone.
Well, Sylvia
Well,
did that.
he's now making a big point.
Yeah, when you see these obituaries, they're just all the same age as
This,
Oh, I'm saying,
this. I don't understand.
so what gets me is when they're only 60 years old, what if they do is die?
I'm gonna ask you how old you are.
83.
Oh, good for you.
That's why I said as long as I'm gonna get repaired.
I wish they could just drive us into a shop like a car.
Yeah, right. And then
You come out brand new,
wanted to
we're gonna have
big paint job, the whole
add the
bit.
red later.
Yeah, I wanted to get to just establish how dark it was gonna be on the paper and also to get a sense of the color where it was gonna be, you see.
These things come on so
And I'm
quickly,
not-
but it takes so long to get rid of
I'm
them.
not trying to do a botanical plate of a rose here. That's not my intent. What I just want to do is get the impression of
starting to look at the road.
She brought it to life, didn't she?
Swinging is good. Not in the leaves, please. I can run around behind limbs.
God certainly gave you a talent. Okay, now I can see perfectly.
well, it was no gift, believe me.
You worked hard for it, didn't you?
You betcha.
So we're all agreed that I'll set the gallery Sunday. I couldn't find a substitute.
Oh.
So I'm bringing my grandchildren down.
Okay.
You need to. You need to, you need to.
But you had talent too. Lots of talent.
Aptitude.
Well, you know what? It's a desire to do it.
Yeah,
I think is
a lot
part
of
of it.
yeah.
If you don't have the desire, then you're not going to do it.
If you took being an artist, say from 1 to 100, the first maybe 10 might be talent. The next maybe 20 might be things that you've gotten from a teacher here and there. The rest of it is just pure hard work. Talent does not count for that much.
Well, they always say, how long did it take you to do this? Well, 20, 30 years. Whatever.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, it's sad. And you look back and stuff.
No, I was in commercial art for many, many years.
Was that like a dictatorship though, where they told you more or less what you
Well,
had to
it's
do?
commercial art, you know. I mean, I was doing pictures of nylon negligees for newspaper ads and manure spreaders for Sears Roebuck and
And I'll sign
things like that. I did all kinds of stuff. I did interesting things, but it was not what you would call
I don't know.
fun.
Creative.
Well, part of it was fun, but it was not fine art. Whatever that is. It's, you make a decision early on in your career, and that's not always the wisest one, because you don't know really what you're getting into, I don't think, when you're young. But you have a choice. It's very hard, almost impossible, I'd say, to make a living as a easel painter, as a fine artist. Particularly when you first start out.
Or and a woman.
Of what?
Woman. Well, I thought the men had the advantage.
That is also an additional problem. But
A lot of people, women especially, sign up canvases so they don't know.
my son used to say, "Gee, Mom, instead of complaining about this, why don't you just sign your canvases with your last name, like everybody else does?" And I said, "I'll be damned if I'm going to give him that satisfaction."
Yeah. A lot of women have done that.
Well, women have so much more that they do nowadays.
Oh, yeah, years ago.
I mean, years ago, it was either nursing or teaching.
Didn't come out right, but there was.
Is it time to hold this up again?
I don't know,
Yeah.
we're all up here.
We're all around this.
There, about 30 years ago, I was writing, and I was writing for the riflemen.
American
So
Rifle?
yes, and so I used them, and they didn't know, never knew.
But you know what, a woman's ahead of that now.
Yeah, oh yes, but I mean, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was about 35 years, somewhere in there.
I don't know if she's
Well, we're
actually,
close to
she didn't
being
take
done
Charlton
now.
Heston's place, but she's something.
I wrote, and then I wrote later after I was here. But that was when the women were pushing in, and so I wrote things then for,
subject. Roses are probably the toughest, aren't they?
Well, that's all I had.
Yeah.
Drag one of your animals.
Well, after this rain, the flowers got ruined probably.
Yeah, I went out there to pick some this morning, and there were piles of petals on the ground.
Rhododendrons were just doing great. We had a rainstorm that shortened their life.
I got some tomato plants, but they liked it. So
The only thing
I got standing.
are you growing a lot of fuchsias?
Not a lot. I used to grow a lot, but I have some.
Well, mine are getting so much rust and everything. I never used to have that. I'm getting so discouraged that you either live or die. So
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, you don't.
I'm just not gonna put that
No.
much time and
Well,
effort into it.
put in what you enjoy.
Yeah, well, I enjoy them. They're beautiful, but they want to be in my little dusty.
Yeah.
Put in it.
Yeah.
Because I've been growing them since.
These roses are
I
Five
love
years.
that. I love that rose. Yeah, the one over there on the top.
Oh, yeah. You can see right into it.
Now, what's that blue again? That's that Daniel Smith blue that you.
Yeah, that's Indian throne blue.
Okay.
You got that
Is that
one?
what did she say? Indian?
No,
Indian.
it's how do you, it's a,
Indian throne.
Indian trunk.
INDAN
How is she gonna have over here?
throne.
T-H-R-O-N-E.
Now I know how to paint a rose.
Oh, really? You going to try that?
This is
Doesn't
not.
usually happen.
This is not how to paint a rose, believe me.
Well, they
Well,
look
it's beautiful.
they look great. That one's special. Is this thing still running? Yeah. Okay. Now I better look out for it.
Now, we're going to do the
But you know, I have to clean up, so I may be home till 4. I told my husband I'd be home at 3. Well, you know why you should do that?
Why?
True, true.
I'm cutting out a lot of my, I used to have so much more garden work. And I used to, I can do it, but I run out of energy.
Well, yeah, but you feel so bad the next day.
Yeah.
Isn't that stunning? The one right above her head, that is a palette knife, still like, isn't it
But I wouldn't have it any other way than to have my art.
sitting right over her?
Yeah, yeah.
And you said ultramarine was
We have-
similar to that.
We have someone
Yeah,
cuts
it's not
the
as
lawn
strong,
But it's similar.
and cuts
it's
the
not as
brush
dark,
and the
it's a
rest of
similar
it.
color, it's a reddish blue.
Who's your favorite artist?
Mine?
Yeah. Besides you.
Oh, I'm certainly not yet. Who's my favorite artist? You mean watercolorist?
Well, I meant kind of in general, but that's how much I know about painting.
Well,
Watercolor's okay.
You know, it's hard to pick one. Different times in my life, I have had different favorites. When I was in junior high school, I lived in San Francisco, and I lived in a place and went to a school where I walked, I could, without too much altering my course, I walked past the Legion of Honor on my way home. And in those days, you could get in for nothing.
The magic when she does the
Yeah.
walk.
Isn't that something?
So,
Oh, and she's making it live.
And now they're
No.
What it is, but it's
I used to go past, I make deliberate detour, and I'd go in the Legion of Honor, and way in the back end of one gallery, there was a still life by Richard Harnett that was hanging on the wall. One of his hunting scenes, it was an old barn door, and it had a hunting horn and a dead rabbit and a couple of partridges and things, you know, this kind of thing. It was three-dimensional. It was just unbelievable. And I used to go and sit in that gallery for maybe an hour on my way home from junior high school.
Which
Just stare at that.
wow. Who did
Which
painting
painting
it?
was this?
Richard
Harnett.
Oh, Arnett. I thought you
Harnett.
said Bennett.
Harnett.
Rick Bennett. Oh, Richard Arnett. And by the way, Rick Bennett is back this coming weekend, having undergone third-degree burns and skin grafting and all the rest. And he had skin grafting on the top of his head and on his hands, and a pig skin put on his back. And they took the pig skin off. That means it's healing, and they're releasing him, which is just phenomenal. They thought he'd be there for months. He kind of burned his house down, and he was lucky. Bad move. He was burning out in his backyard, and out of the field, the whole field caught on fire, and he was inside it. But the neighbor bypassed him and ran inside because his wife was inside fixing breakfast, and their daughter, who was in a wheelchair, was in the rear bedroom.
It's a granddaughter.
And they go. So she said, let's get your daughter. So the daughter was there with the roommate. They were sleeping in. This is like 10 o'clock in the morning. So they couldn't get the electric wheelchair out. So they put the daughter in the wheelchair, and then there was another granddaughter that they had around. So 3 people in a back bedroom that wouldn't have made it. And as they ran into the living room, Rick suddenly appeared in the front door and didn't even realize he was on fire, hair and clothing. And she yelled at him, drop and roll, and he did, and they smothered the fire. And so he's been in the burn center. Now, from that, I found out that everyone up here was taught that in school, drop and roll. I was never told drop and roll. What a good thing to do.
The battery started going off.
Mm-hmm.
Turn it off, and so that you get the final thing. Oh, and my heart was
Okay, we're getting the last final.
okay.
That was a lot of work.
Did you make your necklace?
Mm-hmm.
I asked that question.
Oh, okay. Well, you have to see it then.
Yeah, can you swing around and get it?
Hold on. I gotta put the final kibosh on this thing.
That's all right.
You over there.
Just crawling in on you.
I'll bend a little bit because I'm
No,
taller.
that's all right, that's what I can see. Are you gonna glaze the tablecloth now?
Am I gonna do what?
Glaze the tablecloth, or are you done?
No, I'm not gonna do any more to it right now. I'm gonna call it
Plain
good. What I wanna do is sign it, that's what I'm gonna do next.
Hold it up.
Now that's where I have the most trouble with signing my name.
Why?
I don't know.
Can't spell it?
I don't have that in